Hello, and welcome back to this episode of Best in the Biz, the pod talking business with CNA entrepreneurs. This week, we have Josh Taylor, CEO and founder of TxtSquad. Welcome, Josh, and thank you very much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Ian.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So to get started, tell us a little bit about what TxtSquad actually does.
Well, TxtSquad is a patient communication platform. So what that really means is that we make it easy for patients to get in touch with healthcare providers. So if you think about how, patients normally have to get in touch with their healthcare providers, there's a myriad of, there's a lot of phones still. There's a myriad of apps and portals, and, you can walk in to see your provider. We kind of fit in the middle of all that with a two-way texting system that's supported with AI. We also support phones and portals. But the core goal is that we make healthcare incredibly accessible. We make an easy touch point before an appointment, follow up after an appointment, and just make a seamless, simple, instantaneous engagement channel.
Fantastic. I think that's a much needed resource these days. And if it streamlines anything in healthcare, that's fantastic. So it's all about, reaching people where they're most responsive, usually through text. So how did you really recognize the potential of, text messaging as a powerful business tool? And how do you think it compares to email or social media?
Oh, that's a good question. So where it started was I had built a consultancy and I was working with a large franchise company in the US, and we were having issues getting franchisees to use the analytics platform that we built for them. So we started texting them like when leads came in or when important insights were available. And we just saw this game-changing engagement right away. And that was when the light bulbs went off. So we had built that like natively. So within our software, we integrated an underlying carrier and just did some simple stuff. So then I looked around the market and said, I want a more robust two-way texting tool with a ton of features. And I couldn't find one that ones did exist, but none that you could integrate into an enterprise software. So we built one in 2019. We kind of pitched it at an incubator here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we were successful. And then we went into the enterprise program, launched in 2020, and took off. But one of the big light bulb moments for us was we were kind of a hammer looking for a nail, which is the opposite of what you want in a startup. Usually you're after a very direct need. We just saw an opportunity in texting. Now, texting had been around a long time, but there wasn't a lot of enterprise engagement. You were getting these marketing texts, but really two-way engagement for any type of business process was not really being done unless it was being done with like a contractor's cell phone. So we were kind of looking around and we got pulled into community-based organizations. So notably School Lunch, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, various organizations where they needed ways to communicate with people who are not at a desk, didn't have those fail points of email. And that kind of opened up for our eyes right away, which what we saw with the School Lunch program was that everybody has texting. It's the app that everyone has that they're always turned on. And from that, of course, COVID happened and there were big gaps in healthcare and everybody was talking about no-show appointments. And we got approached by a strategic partner who brought us into basically bid on within the health system, an approach to remind people of appointments, as simple as that, but create a two-way engagement channel for rescheduling and follow-ups. And through that, we pivoted into healthcare. And that's kind of the way we got around it. The big advantage over like social media and email or even any app or portal, I mean, it surprised me until I saw the numbers, but any other app, you have to have it on your phone, you have to log in. And unless you say have a chronic illness, you don't go to the doctor every week. You go every 3 months, every 4 months. Sometimes you might be on a computer at work. Sometimes you'll just be on the go with your phone. So now you've got to have some health login saved in two places. You got to have the app up to date. And a lot of times then you don't have notifications on. So what we found with portals and with apps was that it wasn't a good means for communication. Totally fine for one-off things like maybe a document or uploading something. But even then there was a ton of friction. So we just found that we could get 85 to 95% of the read engagement, very high reply engagement, depending on the nature and the demographic of the patients through text. Whereas you're lucky if you can get 20% of people to log into your app. And if you can get 20 to 30% in email, just read is incredibly high. Most providers that are doing any type of healthcare communication over email are below 20% engagement. So, there's very rarely in technology do you get a silver bullet, but we got pretty close with texting. And then if you look at how the technology around us has advanced, notably with AI, It's made that interface, which when we started was very clunky. And by that, I mean, reply one for this or two for that, to a full AI integrated texting experience. It's become a lot more robust and easy to use. So it's very simple and very accessible.
Well, that is absolutely incredible. And like you said, AI is such a great tool these days. If you're not using it, then you're probably falling behind.
Absolutely.
So there is a balance, that needs to be struck there as well, though, between, automation and personalization. So can you walk us through how your team actually makes sure businesses still feel human, when connecting with customers at scale or patients at scale?
Well, that's actually an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked it, because one of the mistakes that sometimes people who approach us, or misunderstandings, is that we automate patient engagement. We use automations to make patient engagement more accessible, gather better data, and make it work. We are a human-run system, so we make, we call them medical office administrators here in Newfoundland and Labrador. They call them clerical staff or admin staff in various other parts of North America. So, but whoever's at the front desk in your healthcare provider, we make them superheroes. So like we make their job a lot easier. We get them off the phone, end the frustration with patients, allow patients to get in touch easily. So our goal is human-centered. So our whole AI works within a human-centered interface. It's not meant to set it and forget it. And we've had significant clients that came to us who wanted that approach, and we declined, because we don't want to get into the concept of automated engagement. Automated engagement is not really where we need to be in healthcare. We need to have the human oversight. We need to have the human touch, and we need to use automations to smooth that process, gather data, and improve the quality of that process, not to replace people. We want to replace busy signals with text conversations and conversations with real people.
To bring it back a little bit, you talked about we. Did you want to touch on the CNA connection there a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background originally was, as a software developer, and then I worked in the energy industry forecasting software for a long period, and lived overseas and went to business school and a few things like that. But when I came back to Newfoundland and Labrador, it's been 12 years ago now, I came back to start a business. And in that period, I was trying to find out what to do. I was doing some consulting and such. I ended up teaching at CNA and at Memorial University, but primarily CNA became my core place to be. I found a home there teaching programming. And interestingly enough, I had, kind of slowly gotten away from programming again. Now, obviously, I had a big education in it, and I'd been programming since 1997. So it got me really grounded back into the tech space. And I was involved in the startup community. And through that, it gave me the fire to start my own tech company. I taught there for almost 12 years in the programmer analyst, what became software development program, primarily as a Java developer, but later on JavaScript and all kinds of other stuff, and a lot of business courses. But through that program, I taught Tim Bonnell, who's our CTO, and he came in, and he was an excellent student. He graduated, joined a startup. But at the same time, I was doing that project I mentioned earlier in the US. And he came back to me a year later. The startup didn't work out, which is a great experience for anyone who goes into startups. They mostly fail, and you learn more than if you'd never done it. And he said, what are you doing? And having worked with him, knew him as a student, I said, well, I'm on this project. I can get you on this project. And he came in with me, and we worked together for a year. It was fantastic. And, about a year in, we saw the texting. I said, should we start a company? And he said, yeah, he kind of liked the idea. So I went hard at it, pitched the company. He came and joined me as the co-founder. We wound down the other company over 3 or 4 years, moving the technology over to that big company. And that allowed us the capital to start our new company. And he's now the CTO, and we've been working together since 2018. And I think last year he won that CNA Alumni Award for technology, which was a big deal. But he is the lead developer for TxtSquad. He built the core of our system, all of our AI and everything. And I watched him go from someone who came in learning to code to now he's a 7 years full stack developer who's world class, as good as I've worked with, and I've worked around the world. And it's been great to watch him grow. So our whole core of our company comes from CNA, and I would say our customer success manager was a former student as well. And
very cool.
Yeah, and this fall we're hiring potentially. We're in talks now to hire another student of CNA. So we're very much CNA runs through the blood of the company.
Hey, fantastic, and I love to hear that. That's what CNA is all about, trying to you know get involved in business or help business as much as possible, or even just as simple as having a conversation like today. So it's great to have you here, and great to see that CNA has played such a role in the company. So talking about navigating everything, as a CEO and founder, you're building everything from the product to growing a team. So what has been the most surprising challenge so far in the journey?
What I find has been the biggest surprise is that a lot of people view startups. Now we're a B2B SaaS startup. So what that means is we build software and sell software to businesses. And that's an important distinction because businesses will pay for software. There's longer sales cycles, there's smaller markets, way higher ticket prices. Whereas a lot of people think B2C because they consume software. So they think, I have Google, I have this software. If you think about from your personal life, you pay very little for software. You're mostly the product because they're advertising to you. So we're selling customized software to businesses, but largely it's government and private businesses that are healthcare providers in various shapes and sizes. So the biggest surprise that I had when I got into this was just the timeline of the sales cycle and the implementation cycle versus what I anticipated. And I'd heard this in B2B companies, but it's longer than you think. So you have to innovate in your product. You have to innovate in basically your marketing, which is communicating to those healthcare providers, what are their pains? How do we solve them? What is their unique value proposition? All that you gotta get that right. But you have to learn how to sell to your customer. I taught it when I taught at Mon, I taught business processes and the challenges of business process implementation. I knew it was difficult, but it's even longer than I thought. So it's not uncommon in healthcare for a first project in a new market to take 2 years to do something that's relatively minor. And that sounds crazy, but that means that you have to rewind and plan your resources accordingly. So a lot of people think of a startup as I'm going to go in and pitch something that I'm going to have the right pitch deck. The venture capitalists are going to love it. One's going to hate it. I'm going to navigate the questions. Some guy's going to throw a load of money at me. A year later, we're flying high. We're going to raise 10 times as much money. We're going to the moon. That's what people think in their mind. And and the reason I speak about this so often with other entrepreneurs is by building that accelerated mindset in your mind. It can be really good for certain types of businesses, but by building that in your mind, you're more likely to bail on a business that would have a longer trajectory, but still very successful. So there's a lot of times I see people after 2 years and they're like, it didn't work out. And I'm like, 2 years is still testing the concept in B2B software. So, where we started in 2018, we had the idea. 2019, we pitched it and we were literally, because we've been sitting on it. Now, we were texting through our current customers. So we were gaining a lot of experience in the space. But by middle of 2019, I looked at Tim and I was like, we're not getting anywhere with this. Like we've talked about it for 6 months. We haven't moved on it. I was like, I need to accelerate this. So I went to an accelerator. I literally approached local people. And then I pitched it into a hackathon. We did well on that. And out of that, we kind of got accelerated. It was 2020. That's still 5 years ago. And, I would have thought when I started then at 2023, I'd be where I am now. And at 2025, I've now learned that lesson and I've planned accordingly. And I now know where I'm going to be at 2030. Mm-hmm. Right. So I know that sounds, I don't want in any way that to sound defeatist to anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, because some things come quicker, but we're already in a good position and you enjoy the journey, but pace yourself. It's really a marathon, especially if you're going to do B2B with large scale enterprises. And, a lot of people say the first 3 enterprise deals will get you the next 30 is something that I've heard really people I respect in the field say. To get that first one can take you a couple of years. That second and third will come quick on the back, so they can take another year or two. We're at the stage now where we're just wrapping up our 3 enterprise, and then we're hoping that that's going to light us up. So that's the biggest challenge. Timelines are a lot longer than people anticipate.
Yeah, and of course that's such a big thing because, like you said, a lot of people have the mindset of going into a pitch competition or something like that, and getting that buy-in right from day one. And a lot of the time, that's not the case. So that is a great point. So on to the next one. Talk a little bit about your location, based in St. John's in Newfoundland, Labrador. So how has being rooted in the region actually shaped your perspective on building, this tech company?
Yeah. So I would argue, building off the last point, if you're going to go longer timeline and i.e. more customized, deeper problem solving, Canada isn't a bad place to be. That's not, I'm not trying to turn sometimes our delays into innovation into a competitive advantage. But what I am trying to say is that in situations where you require deep relationships, we have an advantage. So American businesses, and we do a lot of business in the US, love them. But American businesses, they do business a bit quicker than us, but they also start in relationships a lot quicker. So when you get into like building deep relationships, we do have a little bit of an advantage there. For us, our core project has been the Newfoundland Health Services, right, NLHS, and they've been our case study. And the fact that we were based in Newfoundland and adjacent to them gave them the trust in us to be able to push forward with the project. So that mattered. The strategic health investor that I mentioned was Seafair Capital's, now Branch Innovations, under the Seafair group of companies. They have a network in the region. They vetted us and then opened their network to us. They've been invaluable. So we're very much a Newfoundland and Labrador company, and we're very proud of that. So it's shaped us in that way. But that hasn't hindered us in any way. I find we will be growing outside of Newfoundland and Labrador in the next little while. We're going to get some project managers on the ground where our next enterprise projects are, which are outside of Newfoundland. But we're going to bring that culture with us. So it's been an advantage. The disadvantage with Newfoundland and Labrador is it's relatively small. So when you're doing B2B software, you got to be careful that what you're building can fit other markets and isn't for some unique criterion related to this market. Mm-hmm. That, and the second problem is that, one of the advantages that you might have in Ontario versus say the US is you have so many scale of healthcare providers that it's easy to find innovators. That said, we haven't had a challenge finding innovators in Newfoundland and Labrador. So it's very much shaped us. It's been an advantage, I think, overall. And everyone's been so supportive to us that it's really kind of a shared success thus far.
Yeah, that's great. And like you said, you almost get the community buy-in. It is very localized almost. So it does offer that advantage for sure.
Yeah, every now and then when we're at health clinics, well, we're pretty heavy with the onboarding. And it's just like we're very, we'll go to the clinic, we get them up and running. It's texting, nice. So it's pretty easy. Yeah. We develop real relationships, but then new staff come in and then we show up and then they're like blown away that it's Newfoundland software. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that would be very cool to see. Yeah. No doubt about that. So on to the next one here. Many entrepreneurs really struggle with sales and adoption in the early days. How did you really go about getting those first businesses to really trust and try TxtSquad?
You want to find people who are willing to, try something. And they're rare in companies, especially in things like healthcare, because so often they fail. And then you've got to make sure that, you can find a few of those people, build enough of a relationship that you're going to weather the challenges, because there are going to be challenges. Things will be delayed. Funding won't come through. It'll cost more and take longer than you thought. There'll be people within the organization who try and block you. So if you are entering, you got to find the people who want to actually bet on you. Then you got to nurture that relationship. Then if it's a complex buyer process, something heavily regulated like finance or health or anything to do with safety, if it's heavily regulated, then you want to get expertise in the field and ideally in that process. And, in our case, we had a strategic partner, but you could look for someone who recently retired of the organization, wants to be a consultant or a stakeholder, and get them to help you guide you through. But for every business, it's getting those first few projects. And really that comes down to relationships, and you'll have those people for life because they become like they become like an owner of your company in their own perspective. They're vital in the success of you getting a foothold.
Okay, so looking ahead, what are your hopes for TxtSquad in the next few years, both in terms of technology and really the impact you want to make in terms of the customer engagement space?
Yeah, well, to speak freely and strategically and to kind of just get into something I don't talk about a lot, we're very much wondering how we pivot our brand and what we do in the long run, because we do so much more than texting now. we surround the phone and we provide what we call frictionless web experiences or frictionless portals. So book an application or book an appointment online, validate through text, open up a portal, validate through text. So avoiding those logins and those downloads, those friction points. And we have a full, our AI that we deploy over text is been deployed now over phone, and we do a lot with voicemail and call routing. So we're becoming more of a, we want to own the patient engagement space. And we want to surround the existing phones that are there. We don't want to become a phone company. We want to work with existing phones. So that's kind of our strategic push product wise. So I don't know what that's going to mean for us brand wise. We've got case studies and all those things. We're deploying a virtual assistant now. We've done some great case studies with voicemails. We've done multilingual stuff for new Canadians.
Oh, nice.
So we're piecing it all together. And that product roadmap we're very flexible on. Where we see ourselves going is we have a pilot project that's been ongoing in Ontario. It's not overly public because it's a private partner, but it will become public soon. And that is very important for us because it's given us a lot of visibility with the Ontario Health Services. And we also have a bunch of private clinics in Ontario that are going live. So they're kind of our next big market. But also we're targeting the U.S. market now, and we've engaged some consultants down in Boston, and we're in the process of really growing in the U.S. We already have a customer base there, and kind of deploying our system down there. So we target providers at scale. So the more desks they have, the more people they have, the more patients they have, the more value we can provide. So finding those strategic partners in the United States and through the rest of Canada is are key for us in the next couple of years.
Very exciting. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where the journey goes. As a user in the Bay St. George region, absolutely loved it. So looking forward to see how it grows and see what happens next for sure. Okay, so the last thing we have here is something new we've done this season. It's a little rapid fire round. So it's a series of a couple quick questions, and then we'll wrap up. So the first one is early adopter or cautious tester?
Early adopter. Without people trying things, we can't innovate, and we're going to stagnate.
Yep, perfect. Next one is pretty obvious, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Text or call?
I would say text, then call. So text
there you go.
People. Call is a way to have a deeper conversation. It's not an either or. It's text, then call.
Yeah, perfect. Favorite productivity hack as a founder?
Oh God, the biggest hack that you could do is learn to, and we always give hacks and advice and things that we're not very good at is learn to delegate, is learn to trust your team. Every time I do it never fails. And every time I try and do more stuff myself, things grind to a halt. So the productivity hack as a founder, which I'm learning, is to delegate.
That's a good one. One thing you wish businesses understood more about customer communication?
Well, I would just say that people are busy and that people have complex lives. And I hear, they shouldn't be ready for you to provide them service. You should be ready for them. Service is about being ready to help them when they're ready. So that's why I like texting, because, they can text you, you'll get back to them, they'll come back when they're ready, rather than if you do any outbound calling, then what you're doing is you're basically saying my time is more important than yours. So, right. Yeah. So I always found that so frustrating is that people go, I call customers or I call patients and they won't call me back. And I always think, yeah, but that's the wrong way. You should be receptive to them. And then they call in and they get a busy signal. So it's really their time is more important than your time from a service perspective. That's the way I like to view it.
Okay, so that's a wrap. So thank you, Josh, for coming on again. Really appreciate it. I know our listener base is going to have some great content to be listening to over the next couple of weeks. So really appreciate you coming on again.
Thanks so much for having me, and keep doing the good work and getting the CNA story out there.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Okay, so that's our wrap for today's episode, folks. If you like today's episode, please leave a like or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you'd like to know more about CNA entrepreneurship or be on the podcast, visit www.cna.nl.ca/entrepreneurship. Have a great day, everyone. Make access easy. TxtSquad succeeded by removing barriers to service. No apps to download, no portals to log into. Texting lets the client respond when it's convenient for them. And that flexibility meant smoother communication for clients and less stress for frontline staff.
Plan for the marathon. In large-scale B2B sectors like healthcare, implementation can take years. Josh emphasizes the importance of pacing resources wisely. Slower growth doesn't mean failure, it's just the nature of the market. Build better relationships. Canada's advantage lies in deep, lasting relationships. While other markets may move quickly, they cycle through partnerships just as fast. TxtSquad shows how trust can open doors that speed alone cannot.